Hello, my name's Lee Addison. I'm from rugbyleaguecoach.com.au and I've been analysing the Ashes series in a lot of depth. And I invite you to watch this analysis video with me. This video looks at England's attack. In the media, you will have heard it referenced as being too lateral. That means going sideways too much and not putting pressure on the line. And as I analyze this tape and analyze the game on the day, I thought there were bigger problems than that. Those who say the game was played too laterally by England are absolutely right. But what they didn't comment on is what England did before they got to the point where they moved the ball sideways. This video will show you. Just before we go further, coaches and clubs out there, I'd like to let you know about the Coach Mentor Program, a very successful program that is available for all coaches and clubs. If you do not want the individual touch, please go to our online programs at rugbyleaguecoach.com.au/shop. England in attack. So here they have a tap penalty that went to the Kai Pearce-Paul, who took in a carry to the scrum line. Now, I've just paused the tape here because I want you to look at how short and how thin the Australian defence looks at the top of the screen. So you may see the right wing there and the right centre are quite compressed, but also in and around the ruck, we still have, just as England did, a defender trying to get back into the line. So Australia are a little bit thinner on their edges. So I would have preferred to see England doing an early shift to this area just to move the Australian defence around before trying to do something back to them. Instead, this is what they did. They would take another carry to the middle here. Now, this isn't a bad option depending on what happens on the next play. And this is what we'll look for now. So from this point, there should be either 5 defenders on one side and 5 defenders on the other, or 4 defenders on one side and 6 on the other. If there's 4, you go towards the 4. From this position, England haven't really done anything to move or discombobulate the Australian defence, and they're lined up very well. So Reece Walsh has obviously marshalled his defence very well. Now, this is the problem with the England attack for mine. They don't have a clear direction as to what they do from that middle if they have a 5 and 5. And you may have noticed that they went to the front man there, Callum Watkins, when really the space was out of the back. I'll show you that again. Go out the back to the space. So from there, I'd like to see a long shift to the other side of the field. And that's what England tried to do. But, again, they go short. They don't go to the edges. Let's have a look if they'd have gone to the edges. So, Australian defenders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this side of the ball. That means there can only be 5 somewhere else. There's 4 here, and I think this is Josh Adokar here. So the defence is a little bit shorter out here. This pass needed to go out of the back, basically, and England's shape had to be better. Instead, they went back to the middle, which is their default position, and this just allows Australia to readjust. Look, Australia's numbers aren't short. England do, though, try and get some kind of impact on the edge, but they don't turn the pressure into points because they've not manipulated the defence enough. They now have a repeat set, and Australia's defence will be starting to get tired. So, I'm just going to pause the tape there. Look how bunched the Australia defence is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 defenders in that screen there. But the England attack isn't ready to attack. They're all looking towards the ball. They're not in shape, even though there was a clear turnover in England's favour. Let's have a look how many England players are in the screen here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So England are actually bunched up more than Australia, which is shocking, really. So they just take a carry, and this carry allows Australia to get their defensive line organised again. England are just going back to the same place all the time, and they're not doing anything to manipulate the defence. Let's have a look at that defensive structure there now. Australia have 4 defenders on what we would call the short side, which means they've got 6 plus the fullback on the other side of the field. The conversation where I take it 4 and then 6 or 5 and 5, that's because there's traditionally 10 men in the defensive line, 2 markers and 1 fullback making the 13. So, from this position here, I still think England have some manipulation of the Australian defensive line to do. Instead, they just take in a carry. So, let's go to the next attacking set, and we're going to look for the same things. I probably won't need to stop and start the tape as much on this one. Let's see. Back to the middle. Back to the middle. All this will do is allow Australia to get their numbers right in and around the play the ball. But the Australian defence is still a little bit rattled, which just shows you that there have been opportunities for England in this test series that they just simply haven't taken. That set there, they did nothing to take away the Australian defence from where they wanted to go, and now the England attack is looking reactionary. What I will do in the next set we go to, I will stop and start again to explain. But look, the Australian defence is now all set, apart from the dead Marine on the floor, which I think was Cameron Munster. Now, another thing that you've heard critique of England is how the halves aren't distributing the ball in the right way. So, let's have a look at that on this set. Kai Pearce-Paul, I believe, has just taken in that hit-up. Let's look at the Australian defence. We still have the man coming off the ruck here. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defenders in the right place, but it's pretty clear to me that Australia are thinner at the top of the field as we'll look at the screen. Let's see what England do with this play. They go straight to the middle. So this now allows Australia to get their defensive ducks in a row. Let's have a look. That space that you just saw a second ago has now decreased. Australia don't look as thin defensively anymore. They look like they have areas covered, and that's why the Australian defence is looking so good at the moment, and that's why England could not get around them. They consistently tried to get around them, and it just wouldn't work. You have to do the right things to the defence before you try to get around them. Now, this was a perfect opportunity to shift the ball to the other side. Let me explain why. 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders covering where you can probably leave 3 defenders, 2 markers. So they're definitely short at the bottom of the screen as you look now. But England aren't ready. Look where Dom Young is, number 2 here. Very much in field. The right edge back row are very much in field. I don't know where the centre is, Herbie Farnworth. And that attacking line is not organised. This was a real poor moment for England in the Test match and a source of exasperation for their fans. Again, though, Australia present them with an advantage. 4 men covering the short side. If they go long down the field here as we look at the screen, or down the screen, I should say, on the right side of the field, they could cause some problems, find a weak defender. On this occasion, George Williams, I think this is, catches the ball, and then it would benefit him if he did go a bit closer to the line on this occasion, because the Australian defenders are coming in, they're starting to turn their hips in. And even though he has, they make poor decisions, the Australian defence. So there are opportunities for England, and they're just not taking them and not doing smart things at key stages. Let's have a look at the screen here. Okay, Australia's defence is looking okay to me in terms of people. That said, I would emphasise trying to extend them on the top end of the field so you get a passive tackle, or at worst, at best, you get some kind of break because the defence is a lot thinner. Instead, they give Australia another chance to settle. This was too easy for Australia to defend. They try the shift now, and Australia have cut down that space already. George Williams or Harry Smith, whoever that was then, was a lot better in going to the line. I'm going to go back to that. Watch this now. Engage defenders. Made defenders bite. Not too bad at all. The problem is, it's all because of how they set up, though. So, this is where England are getting it wrong, okay? The first receiver, he made the defence bite somewhat, okay? But they're running out of room because of the way they're not setting up beforehand. That extra carry has caused them the problems here. So, England are trying to go around them, but they've not tied the Australian defence up. That, my friends, is the problem the England attack is having. In the second half, England were chasing the game. Now, I've pulled this set out because we start back down the field. And the reason I do this is because this is a good place for England to attack. When they're trying to attack in good ball, Australia's defence is ready for attack, to deal with try-scoring opportunities. But as you can see here, Australia are quite compressed. So England can exploit them here and play some football and get some passive tackles to help get a roll on. Instead, we have people on both sides of the ball not really looking like they want to be involved in the game. Let's see what England come up with here. So one of the halves is here. I think it's George Williams. I might be wrong. Oh no, sorry, it was a tip on from a forward. And George Williams then gets the ball, and it's a simple carry into the Australian defence. Yet, if you look back at what we've just seen, there was plenty of opportunity for England to go a bit wider. Even now, look how thin the Australian defence is at the bottom of the screen. If they're in a position to get to this thin defence, they will get passive tackles, they'll get a quick play the ball. Instead, they look to go and engage somebody in the middle of the field, and Nathan Cleary reads it like a kid's novel. Let's have a look where England got that wrong there. Okay, so I've been critical in last week's video of England going to the line too much. This week, they're getting when they should go to the line wrong and when they should hang back wrong and just catch and pass. And this is a perfect example. So, first of all, the hooker, which I think is still Lytton at this point, does something to try and engage markers and ABC defenders here. Then he gives the ball. All this movement has done is bring the Australian defence closer to England. So now, that has put the pressure on the ball carrier, and like I said, Nathan Cleary has read that like a children's novel. Sometimes you just have to pass the ball and get it wide early, and that was a perfect example. So England have to basically start their set again, even though they're in what could be considered an attacking position. Here's another one. So, remember, Australia's defence might be a little bit more relaxed at this point, okay? So, down the other end of the field, when they're defending their own goal line, they are up, they are ready. But here, they might just be trying to catch a little breather. England are at the middle of the field. What do they play? Another hit-up. Instead of targeting this Australian defence, trying to get passive tackles, they're playing to too much structure, playing to the front man too much. From here, blind Freddy can see that the Australian defence have left lots of green grass at the top of the screen. Yes, their numbers might be okay, but as we've seen on previous clips, Australia's defence was at 6s and 7s, and they could be exploited. Instead, England don't look ready to attack, and they don't look like they are working off the ball. The next carry just goes straight back into the guts again. England were chasing the game at this point. They had conceded 2 tries. They needed to find some points. It's all down the middle of the field. The later we get in the game, Australia, of course, are down to 12 men. So it should be even easier to manipulate a defensive line. Let's see what England do. First play, transition, not very quick, people bunched around the ball. Don't forget, England are chasing the game. The carrier's gone to the middle again, which allows Australia to get their defensive numbers correct. Even so, they've still left some space. It's okay for Australia to attack England's space out wide in their compressed defence. Why aren't England targeting the space that Australia leave on the outside? All these carries have done have allowed Australia to settle their defence and to line up the English. So my big criticism is not necessarily the line shots all the time, it's how they're setting up before they get to the line shots. From this point now, look, they were weak at the top of the screen if you look. Instead, they play short inside. If you pass the ball to the edges in certain places, you get passive tackles. If you get passive tackles, you get go forward. England are not doing that at all. Either they're carrying out their coach's instructions to the letter, or the halves are doing it wrong. Time will only tell. After this play the ball, which is very slow, England try and get around the Australian defence. So why can't they get around them? Because there's 5 defenders there, probably covering a space where they only need 4 or 3. So let's see what England do wrong. Look at all the space they can attack. Well, first of all, they've not really manipulated them on the way to getting to this point. Now, from this point here, England, I think this is Harry Smith, has got the ball. I would like him to see him go to the line and use a short lead at this point, and this goes to England's decision-making skills under pressure. If it had gone to a front man there, that front man was through the hole. Australia are predicting that England are going wide, and it's just meat and drink to them. They are reading it very easily. So as you'll see, it wasn't very smart attack from England throughout the whole set of 6, rather than just any specific play. Also, the halves not knowing when to go to the line or stand back and catch and pass the ball. These are all simple things that Australian players just simply do not get wrong. Now, the amazing thing is Australia's attack was probably just as bad, but the players are more skillful. I encourage you to have a look at that video next. It's already been uploaded.